Okay, so thank you to all the panelists. Also, thank you, Anna. That was a really nice conversation. We see some people leaving the room. We see some siesta faces, but we wanted to tell you that there's a lot of afternoon to go, right, Alberto?
There is still 2 panels to go, and then there's a cocktail, a cooking show, and a paella time at 7:30. So please stay in the room, listen to the next conversations, and enjoy the time. Also to tell you that at 4 there will be a new session on the tech theater with people that are still interested about coding, getting used to Gaia-X initiator kind of guide. So also be free to go there at 4 if you are interested in that techie side.
Okay, and for the ones that are staying, we just listened to a panel about a global ecosystem. Now we're going to listen to some stories on the field. The Gaia-X Lighthouses and their experience with their go-live plans. So that we're going to invite into the stage Petra Makovec. That's going to be the master's, the moderator for this session. She's the Gaia-X operation manager. Yeah.
You have to be here.
Then, a good afternoon, everyone. I have the honor and the luck to present the lighthouses. The lighthouses are our project that started in a very early phase of them being a project, already convinced that they want to be a Gaia-X-driven project. So we are very happy that in the last 2 years, we did get a lot of them to join us and also to contribute to what our Gaia-X framework is up to now. You heard a lot that at the end of the day, it's all about the data, but the data is nothing if you don't have a business or concept or a use case to monetize it. Because none of us none of our companies would work with data if at the end of the day they wouldn't have a sufficient use case that supports them in getting also some profit out of it, even if it is not always money, but maybe process optimization. So we heard a lot of that, so please welcome with me from Agdatahub, Sébastien Picard. You already saw him this day, so a big hand for Sébastien. We have to excuse Eona. Eona-X is the project that is dealing in France with the Olympic Games next year. So they were called away into a business meeting, but you can catch up with them tomorrow at their booth. Then please join me in welcoming EUProGigant with Christian Bölling. Gaia-X for Future Mobility, Maximilian Staebler. Maximilian, Max, good to have you here. Omega-X, an energy project with Javier Valiño. No, Javier, sorry, I did it wrong. We tried, we even exercised. Prometheus-X with Matthias de Prévier. And last but not least, our Structura-X infrastructure project that we will learn is something special, right, Klaus?
Yes.
Wonderful. Yes. Yes, sorry. Oh my God, I am so screwed. I am so screwed. Mobility data space, of course, Norbert. I am awfully sorry. I was wondering. I was already wondering how it's possible we have one chair too many. So sorry. Sorry. Yeah, so we would like to understand from all of you, basically, what your Lighthouse project is about, but not only what your Lighthouse project is about, but also maybe the motivation why at a very early stage you decided that being Gaia-X, being with Gaia-X and being Gaia-X compliant at the end of the day is something that, that is important for your project. So maybe, Sébastien, we know already a lot about Agdatahub, but I'm pretty sure there is some more information that you would like to share with us.
Thank you, Petra. I was lucky enough this morning to present you Agdatahub, so I will be quick. 10 million farms to interconnect with 500,000 partners, 80% of SMEs, and our main goal for Agdatahub is to involve all the stakeholders in order to make sure that data are still under the control of the farmers. And as a technological partners, we need to provide all the infrastructures to develop a trustful environment to develop data sharing from farmers with their partners. And that's why we need Gaia-X de facto standards to be implemented by our technological partners in order to develop a trustful environment. This is the first point. And the second point is, in order to develop and to implement this in the successful way, we need to help small and medium companies to be data-centric and to help them to have good knowledge about data, to have data expertise inside the company, and maybe to develop education and knowledge about data. And I think that together we can do that.
Thank you, Sébastien. Christian, you want to continue?
Yeah, thank you. So EUProGigant was also one of the first projects, I guess, that was funded in this case from the Austrian German government. In the meantime, we could extend it to 5 projects that are funded from also, again, German government, Austrian government, but also from the European Commission. And we are looking very much in the manufacturing sector, and there specifically in the vertical of machining and also the plastic processing industry in different use cases. So that means we are, if you compare it to Catena, for example, they are on the horizontal, automotive. We are more in a very specific vertical. Also elaborating on those topics on edge cloud continuum, how to manage this, how those topics could be really implemented in the manufacturing processes. And together we have around about 100 partners that are working on the different projects with a funding of roughly 30 million from the different projects. And so I think the importance of Gaia-X is that manufacturing is only a part of the entire value chain. It's also a part of the supply chain. So working only for the manufacturing sector wouldn't bring us the, let's say, wouldn't allow us to really implement it in the entire value chain and also be compliant with the complexity of the industry. Yeah? So that means having a bridge also to the HR, to supply, to whatever kind of areas in a company is very important. So therefore, for us, it was never a discussion whether a Gaia-X compliant solution is the way to go. Yeah, that was something that we had very clear in mind from the very beginning. Yeah.
So it's also about the holistic view of the whole supply chain and of the whole process that you're looking at from the very beginning.
I would say that's a success. Yeah, I would say it's a success factor. Of course, we as a project consortium, we cannot do that on our own. Yeah, so I think all of us that sit here together are working on a part and a piece of it. But I mean, to have this common understanding that in the end we have to interact with each other and to have this compatibility and interoperability, I think that's quite important. Yeah.
Max, please.
Yes, so the Gaia-X for Future Mobility project family is also funded by the German government, in special by the German Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action. In total, the project family consists of currently 6 projects. They are all individually funded, but all are interconnected by by one part of the project, which is dealing with the horizontal connection of the projects and also to have synergies when it comes to development of Gaia-X compliant services and applications. In total, there are more than 80 partners working in the project family, from research, from industry, and also from the public sector. And the funding volume is roughly 130 million euros. Of course, it's very focused on the mobility domain, and the main motivation from the ministry to establish a family of projects and not just 6 individual project was that many applications in the mobility domain were very specific, and they solved a very specific problem, like autonomous driving in a certain area in a certain city. And then the problem was when there was a new project, there was not a high degree of reuse of the parts that made one project successful. And that's why the ministry said we want to establish a family of projects that is ideally dealing with all components of the mobility system, and then, of course, make the results available open source so that other projects, other countries, other initiatives can reuse these components. So that's why we are also very active in the German mobility hub.
Thanks a lot. Maybe you just hand over the mic to Javier. And Javier, you give us some insight on Omega-X and that energy and brought a lighthouse in the energy sector.
Surely. Thank you very much. Yes. First of all, thank you very much for inviting us to this session and everything you do to promote what we are doing as lighthouses. So it's very much appreciated. As we were saying, Omega-X is the first lighthouse who is primarily looking at energy. So it's a great source of data. We all know that. We are a European-funded project made up of 30 partners, and with a rough investment of around 10 million euros. And within the consortium, within these 30 partners, we are having everything we need in order to build this energy data space. So we do have the providers for the software technology to make it happen. We have as well the data providers, we have the service providers, so it is just a matter of us demonstrating the value. So that's our goal, a twofold goal. First of all, make it happen. So we know that data spaces are feasible. We see many data spaces here represented. So technology is not a barrier. Whenever we have this data space, then it comes the challenge itself. Demonstrate to whoever is playing on the energy field that there is a benefit for them to join the ecosystem. For those who are owning data, what is the benefit for providing this data for external use? For those using this data, how can they reach a wider number of data sets and everything? And we are playing on a complex field. It is a highly regulated field. We do have already existing exchange platforms and hubs already exchanging data, but this concept of data space goes beyond this. So how can we open the ecosystem? How can we make sure that everybody is thriving whenever it comes for energy to share data? And why are we looking at Gaia-X? I would say that right from the inception phase of the project, we were directly discussing on the Gaia-X working group for energy. So the project originated in Gaia-X. Therefore, it is not just that our project is looking at Gaia-X for a solution, it is that we already started in Gaia-X working with this, and we incorporated more partners. So that's the value we see. So we see it from the beginning, and hopefully we can make it happen.
Thank you, Javier. Now let's have Matthias answer the question. And Matthias with Prometheus-X is a to-be lighthouse, so we are happy to have you here. So we are looking forward to welcome you in our lighthouse circle. Tell us what it's all about.
Thank you. So yes, at Prometheus-X, we started working on the education and skills data space. So very important, right? Education, jobs. let's take an example. Let's take you're looking for a job or looking for a promotion. No, everybody is, except Ulrich, but otherwise everybody is. What will you do? You will look to assess your skills, what you want to do. Then you will need to go into a job board, training catalogs, re-enter your profile, compare several job boards and several training catalogs until you find the right job, and then send your CV, send your skills, and so on. What the skills and education data space allows is the interconnection of all these players so that you can easily share your data about your skills that you have in your university, inside the skills application, inside the social networks, and share it automatically with all the job boards, all the training catalogs, and see the matches. And so Prometheus-X started by universities, employers, ministries of education, cities, region, that all want to put into place certain networks to facilitate and accelerate job search, upskilling of people, and say we all want these interconnections, we all need the same data sharing services, and so let's come together, fund them once for everybody, and then different projects, different ecosystems can use it to put into place their own data ecosystems. And so today we have about 200 organizations that are registered on this data space, and 30 data ecosystems that propose this kind of skills matching, job search, innovative services to people. So if you want to check out a real running use case where people control their data based on data space approach, you can come at our booth. And we have these open source components that are compliant with Gaia-X specifications and that would allow any other party to set up such systems. And what's also interesting is that since we're the only ones treating with personal data, we have other sectors, such like the Themis projects and Eona-X, that unfortunately is not here, but for the tourism sector that are going to work with us to allow people to manage their tourism data. Thank you.
So Klaus, no, you're not ready yet? Klaus, Structura. Structura is a little different than all the others, right? Because it's an infrastructure project.
Well, that's why I hope to be last, but we are different, and as we have heard, I think 2 times today, data doesn't live on rainbows. Data, of course, lives on infrastructure, and actually more than that, data also needs to be flowing through the wires, need to be going through a pipe, through an interconnection to be shared between different parties. So in the very easy way, what Structura-X is, a group of about 40 cloud service providers, interconnection providers, and also integration companies that has set up the goal to actually help the non-availability of rainbows, help the goal to provide a Gaia-X compliant infrastructure, connectivity, facilities to store data, to process data, to stream data, but also to run applications according to the requirements of all the lighthouses that are sitting around myself. What is very, very important, we have heard many times, supply chains do not stop in a country. They go across Europe or across the world. Healthcare data, agriculture data, Sébastien mentioned how things need to be connected. So what we as federated group of CSPs want to and have to support is also that we are able to share the infrastructures across the different providers. This means that we must become easy to connect to, so have a single way to actually authenticate users, ways where the underlying services that we are operating, like for instance container runtimes, like for instance data management or streaming solutions, are actually in a way that they can be connected to once and used across the different providers across Europe, for instance. One of the things we're showing at the booth is actually how you connect to one provider and can run your solution federated across multiple countries. This idea of federation of infrastructure is important because most of the lighthouses have some specific requirements to say, I'm for parts of the information a regulated environment where I need to fulfill specific requirements. And we give exactly this choice for each of the data spaces to say this critical type of information I store in a given location under given regulatory requirements. Some other data I put on hyperscalers, other data I put just where the cheapest place is. Sorry.
Oh, fine. Thank you, Klaus. So Norbert, the mobility data space is also one of the very early Lighthouse projects. So a lot is going on there and a lot has developed, as far as I know, since we met last in Paris.
Yep. So the mobility data space was founded in 2021, so a rather old data space. Meanwhile, we got live last year together with the Fraunhofer Institute, who provided the hardware, software for us, and we're really the first data space in Germany going live. In 2023, we now saw that we have to get towards, let's say, infrastructure which is following standards more, getting towards interoperability, for example, with Gaia-X, and so we made the decision that we go towards the EDC connector and provided this towards our customers, and we also went towards more stability in our systems because this was not given at the early beginning. Now, where are we? We have more than 140 participants in the mobility data space, so we are really a large network with small startups, but also with the big German car manufacturers, with some states, for example, Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg, and we have also some cities like Munich who are joining with the data towards the mobility data space. So it's, from my point of view, really a successful story. And what is the future? We want to go towards interoperability, towards Europe. We started this already with the Netherlands, for example, with Austria and with Luxembourg, where we had a very interesting project for data for road safety. And that's the mobility data space.
Thanks a lot. So Norbert, just let me ask you another question. So for which services or for which offerings are you going then for being a Gaia-X compliant lighthouse? So which benefit will it be for your mobility data space to have at least services that are Gaia-X compliant?
There are several things which we have to consider when getting such a big communication platform, if we want to say it like this, running as a data space. One of the most important things is compatibility. So currently we have the situation that everybody has to install an own connector, has an own extension of the connector, and this has to be compatible for our customers because a big company doesn't want to have for every data space it is participating a separate thing which it has to be installed, which it has to learn, and where we are working with. The other thing is the interoperability. If you want to exchange data, the most important thing is that you have a similar ontology, that you know what the others are talking about, that you have the same standards, that you can exchange in a trusted and secure way. And this the last thing, which is also very important, especially if you are funded by the government and by your shareholders, is that you have to save costs. And this means it is absolute nonsense to develop everything twice and 3 times. We have to set up on a standard which is somehow available and which we can somehow use for all of us. And here I think Gaia-X is the future, at least in Europe, but hopefully all over the world.
Thanks. Maybe hand it over to Matthias. Matthias, for your initiative. what is the plans, the business benefits for being Gaia-X compliant with your services, so that the audience can maybe better understand what is the difference between having a data space out there and having a Gaia-X compliant data space out there in the future.
Well, about the Gaia-X, if we take one simple example, in France, the Prime Minister issued a kind of doctrine to say for all public services, they need to have tenders and buy products, in a sense, and services that allow interoperability, and quoted Gaia-X as one way to achieve it. Okay? So if we talk about direct business benefits, that is one that Gaia-X today has, in a sense, been successful in marketing and in having the image towards exterior parties to say, okay, if it's Gaia-X compatible, then we trust the sovereignty, we trust the interoperability, and so on. And so tomorrow, if they put out a tender saying, okay, we want interoperability service for our National Employment Agency, for instance, it needs to be Gaia-X compliant. We propose Gaia-X compliant building blocks. It gives us an advantage over those that are not compliant. That's one benefit. The other benefit, I think, is more, being on stage, having a stand, having the visibility. Being a lighthouse project really gives us courage and validation of what we're doing. It's a very new market. Nobody really knows what data space is, right? And so to put in front and up front some specific projects that are concretely doing it, I think it's useful for the community, but it's also useful for the project to say, okay, you're doing something right. And that is always, that's always nice to hear. And lastly, it's very much like the telcos business. If we don't federate our catalogs, if we don't allow interoperability within the data space, there is no network, there is no business, there is no traction. So that's, I mean, in the end, that's the true value of Gaia-X. It's to allow this interoperability for the industry.
Thanks. Maximilian, Max. How is that looking, how is that from your perspective for the Global for Future Mobility? Because this is a lot of projects, so I'm pretty sure that maybe you can enrich a little on the benefits of being Gaia-X compliant to what we just heard from Matthias.
Yeah, exactly. I think most of the points are exactly the same, and the motivation for the company is also the same. Like I said earlier, we have more than 80 partners in our project family, and they all have a motivation why they contribute and why they participate in the project family, Gaia-X for Future Mobility. And it's not because they really like what Gaia-X is about, but because they want to make a business after the project ends, and they want to use the technologies and the services that we are developing afterwards as well. So for them, and I think in most cases the motivation is that you have some kind of quality gate and you have insurance that whatever services or what other projects are doing is also Gaia-X compliant, so you are interoperable, and then you can scale your solutions that you are developing now maybe for a German city, but maybe also other European cities need the exact same solution as well. So I think I can make an easy example for that case. This is actually also the use case that we will show at the Hannover Fair next year. So the city of Hamburg, they want to, of course, implement Gaia-X and offer smart solutions for parking or for charging electric vehicles. And if a company now develops an application, a Gaia-X compliant application that is offering the solution, it is very easy to scale to other cities, for example. So if you have a, now with Hamburg, and if you have a city like Munich who is also offering a Gaia-X compliant data space, they can easily scale exactly their solution to another city, and then the business case for them is much better than it is right now, where they're developing individual solutions. So this is, I think, yeah, the motivation for most of the companies, and also, of course, the compliance gives us a lot of opportunities to get into contact with Eona-X, for example, or also the mobility data space, to have yeah, interoperability not just in the project family, but also between the lighthouses, and also a cross-border cooperation in this area.
Thank you. Javier, maybe you want to be next. Now, the selection, we heard a lot about clearinghouses today, and that actually the clearinghouse is then your final proof stamp for being a compliant or an approved data project. So what would you give the audience on their way to how to select a clearinghouse properly, and which benefits you're expecting from Omega-X out of that decision that you are taking soon?
Okay, so, well, let me start with a disclaimer. Let's say, being a young project, what we are doing now is trying to do this deployment, and we are testing several things. So we are a couple of steps behind the production data spaces, but still we are doing this exercise of trying to be compliant, and the way to be compliant is by using digital clearinghouses. I can tell you what we are doing, for instance. What we are doing is first test and get to know to the technology. This means that there are reference implementations of digital clearinghouses, so you can download it, you can use it locally, you can understand the ways, the ins and outs of the technology, and you can even consider, as we are doing, if you want to be provider of a digital clearinghouse. So that's an exercise that is being promoted from Gaia-X to have more and more clearinghouses apart from the ones that we already have. And that's a good exercise to understand the technology, so that even if you are using third-party clearinghouses or you use your own, you know how to use it and how to test it. Then our next move would be, if we are not using our own, try to select one. The way to select it is seamless, because at the end of the day, they are equivalent and they are doing just the same. So it would be a straightforward solution. We are exploring with some of our partners, being a Spanish-driven consortium, let's say, at least in coordination, if we can use this next coming Gaia-X Hub Spain digital clearinghouse. But if we cannot make it because of the time differences, we will use the ones that are already there, and they are functional and they are providing this compliance. So we have to fear nothing about implementing clearinghouses, because they are tested, they are up and running, and it is just a matter of clearly understanding and know what is in there for you and how can you use it rightly.
Thank you. I think this is an important message, that it's obvious that whatever clearinghouse you choose, you could exchange them easily, and they will all serve your purpose. So thanks for making that so clear. Sébastien, you are, as we all learned this morning, you are up and running. So you have a couple of services that are running on a clearinghouse. So is there something that you want to share with the audience that might make it easier to take a decision for their project, or even make the decision to join us as a Lighthouse project in future?
I mean, it is easy to make a decision when we think about users, end users at the end. I mean, we are lucky to be the coordinators of Agri-Data Space Consortium with 15 partners present in 10 member states. And since 12 months, we work together and we make some prefiguration about what could be the European agriculture data space. And when we start preparing the video for the demo, for the go-live video, I mean, we saw and we opened the engine, and we thought that when we used Gaia-X technology, Some other partners use Eclipse data connectors. Others use iShare connectors. And we said we need a place and we need a universal component in order to interconnect all our platforms. And it's great because this place is Gaia-X. And what is really important is to say, okay, we work together in order to make interoperability between our platforms. And for sure, with the current version of the framework, Gaia-X framework, it worked. But we want to go further with all the ecosystems in order to make, to have next year, we hope so, to have really data flow connectors and even to make business through clean houses in order to make, like in telco, a roaming between platforms in order to be sure that the data product published on Agdatahub platforms can be used, maybe monetized in other platforms. And we will be great that next year we can do that together and to show you it works. We know that we have the good basis together here, and next year we will need to go further.
Thank you. Christian, you are one of our also very early lighthouses, and we have to say that EUProGigant is growing so fast. You started with a handful of use cases. So where are you right now? Where do you stand?
So, I mean, the question always is, okay, what means live? I mean, you have seen that also in the presentation from Roland and Pierre. We have the catalog. We have we are relying on the Prometheus-X technology also with Delta DAO, and so from that point of view, I mean, what we have established is up and running. Yeah? The question is, okay, does it mean that we are, let's say, now ready to sell it to the market? I would say no, that's not the case, and that has several reasons. But one is, of course, we had to develop things first, and we had to also make demonstrators, and demonstrators have to be simple and easy to understand. I think that we have reached, and for several of our use cases, especially for the validation platform component mentioned, but also CO2 footprint in product development, we have, let's say, very good demonstrators, also with machinery and everything, to make it easy to understand what the benefit of the data usage, data sharing is. The question now is, okay, how do we now convert it into a business, so to say? And there are two components. I mean, question on how to operate the data ecosystem is one thing. We are working on that, also as my own organization, but there are also questions, how do we reach the market? So that means, how do we reach the many manufacturers that are SMEs, that are family-owned businesses? I mean, I was at the German Engineering Summit the days before, and I mean, that's family-owned businesses, and you have to convince them not by saying, hey, now you could share data. I mean, that's not interesting for them. What is the value behind? Why is it attractive? What is the advantage? And maybe what is also the need? You know, because I mean, it comes also with the interoperability. I mean, looking into, for example, Catena, battery passport, and I mean, battery is manufactured, so several organizations are involved in the process of manufacturing a battery. You want to have information on the CO2 footprint, on the origin of the source, the material, and whatever. I mean, that are information that are available along the supply and value chain, but it's very difficult to manage that by sending emails. So that means, and also in the future, that will simply not be accepted by regulators anymore. So that means there's on the one hand side the big advantage to simplify process, on the other hand the need to make it digital and available also by default. So that means that's, from my point of view, now the next step. So how to reach out, and the important step is also to think on what is the current setup of those manufacturers. So they have established IT systems, ERP, manufacturing execution systems, whatever kind of software, and we need to think on how do we reach those that are already today the business partners in that area, that we can convince them that also solutions are available. Yeah, if there is a a requirement from a customer to the supplier that, okay, from next year on, please send me that and that data in that format via a data ecosystem, that this can happen with very simple steps. So I think, so when you, question answered, if you look into the use cases, I think we have very good ones. If you look into, okay, can we sell them on the market right now, I think we have some things to do. And we also need, of course, this, and I think that's something that Catena-X managed very well. They really brought many people together in the automotive sector, and I think that this is also the chance with Manufacturing X to bring really a huge group of people together and start this movement. And then, of course, you need to have the solutions available. Otherwise, it will then disappear from a certain point of time on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in there, and I think that's where Klaus Structura-X comes in to support with the underlying infrastructure all the topics that we heard, the interoperability, the trust, and the owning of the data space where the data space wants it to be.
What? Just have to beat them. Well, one of the specific things where I wanted to start with, if we're looking at the infrastructure providers, we are not necessarily the ones who own the data. So if you don't own the data, you are actually in a very, very good position to take in an independent position to fulfill all the functions, like, for instance, running clearinghouses. And the two existing accredited clearinghouses are Structura-X members. The pipeline that you have seen from Roland this morning is mostly filled with Structura-X members. So providing these, what we usually call federation services, the services that are available for everybody in a data space, is something that we as Structura-X members believe can do very, very well. So that is the clearinghouses. We have seen this morning a little bit a peek on the policy engines that Pierre has been presenting. This again is a neutral function. It's something where you federate how to apply rules against the different participants. We have seen the catalogs that you want to also promote across different states. And sorry, of course, we will not promote only the ones with A in the first letter. What I want to say is, again, we have an independent function. We will not rank people by having the nicest T-shirts or what have you. It's what we can do to take out this bias that you've seen in many, many, many existing data-driven singular platforms. And the second step, if you take it logically a step forward, we have talked about the value of open source, developing things once. And we are, as a group of cloud service providers across Europe, cooperating in a number of data space initiatives. If we develop, for instance, connectors, if we develop policy engines, if we develop certain solutions, it is our aim to develop these things once, so saving money for the CSPs, but also making it much, much easier for the end users to operate on a singular platform. That was, sorry, there's a counter in front of me and I was just looking at 0, so I stop here.
Thanks, Klaus, thanks. So I think that a lot of projects that are out there that are now thinking about to become also, to join our journey to become Gaia-X compliant, they should definitely look into Structura-X and have a talk with you guys. So, and also for all the providers out there, I mean, most of our member providers are already joining the Structura-X Lighthouse, but for all others here, we are still open for new members.
Yes, absolutely, definitely open for the community and additional companies who want to join.
So, and now we, I joined some 1.5 years ago, so you guys formed Lighthouses already 2 years ago. What would you ask from Gaia-X? What would, if you could wish, if we would be a rainbow, which rainbow should we be for you? So maybe Norbert, you give...
No problem. So, yes, what would be my wish? So, the whole way in establishing a data space, and to be honest, I'm in the mobility data space since 1 year, working there, is a long and winding road. If you have no support, if you have not a community where you can discuss it, it's rather often bumpy, this road. And then you have to find ways out of this, and there you need a big community. And I think this is exactly what we have here with the data spaces. It's a real great opportunity to discuss with other data spaces in a very open environment. And for example, we heard about Structura-X. At least 2 of the partners of Structura-X, or 3, are also working together with Mobility Data Space. So we are a real good community, and it's a must to work inside a community, and to be a lighthouse gives you also the possibility to show what is going on there and to discuss the problems with experienced colleagues in the other areas. And I think this should be a real impression how to become somehow a valuable member of the data space community.
Thank you, Norbert. We can do the last round, just, but you want to finish? That's also fine for me. Go ahead. What would you...
That's actually a difficult question for me, because as you know, I'm also, or as you may know, I'm also running the architecture. But I think what Norbert has just explained, we have on the one hand side the core services that we have seen today presented by Roland and Pierre, the clearing houses. We have mentioned quite a few times there's been a whole ecosystem around open source projects, by the way, not only from the DSPA, but also from Agdatahub, from commercial providers, from Prometheus, who is doing personal data spaces. I think we need to engage, as I think it was also said before, more in the working groups and in the communities to actually bring these pieces stronger together. Value is in sharing, making sure we learn from what's happening in one or the other projects, and ultimately from a commercial perspective, I think it was also mentioned before, we cannot develop everything always and invent everything 4 or 5 times. We need to learn from each other, we need to go for the volume of scale, make it easy to operate, and actually, quite frankly, also get a much faster speed in adoption. I think we've done a very important step. I mean, today is where we first time in a public event see clearing houses live, and we should be very positive about this and say immediately now we need to get the second step and build on top of what we have achieved.
Definitely, we cannot stop here. This is absolutely true. We need to go on, and we need to learn from you. Matthias, what would be beneficial? What would help you on your way and on your journey, on your business journey?
Well, I would like a rainbow that shines from the top, from the bottom to the top, and not from the top to the bottom. I would like Gaia-X to be a bit more bottom-up. Maybe it's because we're very new in Gaia-X. We became members in August, but I feel it's not very focused on the concrete use cases that drive the requirements. And I feel that we have, as I said, 200 organizations using it, have people using it. And when we come into some working groups, it's really hard to know how to contribute and how the decisions are made to make things evolve. And maybe it's because we're very new and we still need to figure it out. But a bit more clarity and a bit more focused on concrete use cases, I think would be great. And for our personal kind of approach, I think personal data is still missing a lot on how people can control their data, and I think it's going to be 80% of the business value in the end. So having a more dedicated work on this would be great.
Thank you, Matthias. And I agree, we're missing personal data, but we're not only missing personal data. So if you're out there and you're in a finance or in a healthcare project and you want to join and discuss these topics with our current lighthouses, and it's not only those that are sitting here, we have a couple of more that you already saw, please reach out to us, because we really depend on you and your input. And not we depend on that, but also the Lighthouse colleagues really need the exchange with other projects to come up with also new business ideas, and with business ideas with what to do with the data, and how to bring ideas that were done in research institutes like EUProGigant, which is a university-driven thing, to bring that to the market. So we are really open, and we are waiting for you to approach, and we are here to support you maximum possible. Javier, what was the benefit in the last 6-8 months for Omega-X? Because you're also a rather new lighthouse. I think it was also hard to onboard, but what was the benefit then, or what would you recommend other projects, why they should maybe think about joining us here?
Sure. So there are certainly some pain points in being a young project, let's say, enjoying and keep up the full speed other projects are having. But there are also good things that when we are joining, we can have this benchmarking. So we know what others are doing, and they are on this, well, maybe not live, as you were saying, but operational phase. So we can have a direct visibility of what others did to solve the problem we are trying to solve now. So this is a clear benefit, that we can rely on the lessons learned, on the best practices we can see in other lighthouses in order to implement something similar, or if we find something that is we can do it better, try to complement what they did on this respect. So that's a clear benefit we can mention. Apart from this, there is also what we already mentioned about visibility. So being a lighthouse provides us with a lot of visibility in this kind of events, and also one important thing, which is the way you structure this kind of lighthouses as being the first responders, let's say, to whatever is being decided in the working groups of Gaia-X. So if you join as a lighthouse, you will be at the forefront of the definition of everything that is meaningful at Gaia-X level. And they are listening us very carefully, because at the end of the day, we are the ones testing it on the field. So it is fair to say that we are providing with this valuable feedback to make sure that whatever Gaia-X is defining as requirements is meaningful as well for whoever is implementing it. So that's a clear benefit and a clear two-way communication we can establish.
And it's also very important for us, because what we need is we need those projects out as our proof of concept, or actually as your proof of concept, because all our deliverables are mainly member-driven. So good to see. Max. The mobility data space is a huge thing in Germany. There is a lot more than the Gaia-X for future mobility. There is the mobility data service. Did you benefit from the fact that there is more mobility initiatives within the lighthouses?
I mean, certainly, especially in Germany with the automotive industry, which is very prominent, of course. This was also then for us easier to pitch the idea of what our plan is to do with the Gaia-X for Future Mobility project family, and also, of course, for example, our institutes, but also many partners who are active in the project family are also participating in Catena-X or the mobility data space, and of course, there they learned a lot of things, and we could use a lot of, or reuse a lot of things that were already discussed and developed in these sort of projects. So in that regard, yeah, there was a huge benefit, and I think as a as a lighthouse, or the process to become a lighthouse, where we had the questionnaire from the ISBL, and we really need to consider all the 6 projects and what they are doing, what they're bringing into the project family. So to go through this process really helped us as a project family to also better understand what we want to do with the Gaia-X compliance, where we want to go, and what our goal is, and what kind of benefits we can expect as a lighthouse. Maybe I can also answer the question you asked Klaus with the wishes, because during this process of becoming a lighthouse, we of course ask all the projects, what are you currently exactly doing, what kind of services are you using, what are you developing, and we generated a heat map that makes it really easy for developers to see, well, if I have problems, for example, with the EDC, I can go to this person and ask this person, and he can help me out. And this is a small project family with 6 projects, and I think exactly this would be very, very helpful if we could have an overview like this for developers on a European level, so that the interoperability and the connection between the different projects, also on a European scale, is easier and does not need to go through Utable or through Postbox, so that the connection can be easier, be from one person to another person, and that everybody knows what the other projects are currently really doing.
Very, very good point. We will put that on the action list so that you guys have a easier connection between each other and collaboration. Christian, the rainbow, what would be your rainbow wish to us?
I would say, I think it was quite natural. I mean, the initiative started as a R&D activity. Yeah, I think that was quite clear. What we see now is that on the one hand side we have made development, we have results on several sides, from the use cases, from the structural infrastructure and IT side. The question now often is, okay, how could I benefit from that? What is the advantage of it? So that means looking then also a bit more into the business side, I think is important, and we need to do that. And of course, I still know that the maturity and the development is different between different initiatives in different sectors, but I think we should start now more and more look on the business side of this initiative. What could it, how can it work, and where actors can really benefit, what are the values, and then I think we need to have, let's say, something like stable version, something that can really be used, and we can guarantee that this is something that we can work for at least 6 months, 1 year with. No changes in that version to really also then start this commercialization. I think that's something quite usual, at least in the manufacturing sector. If you look into all those IT systems, that's something that is normal and usual, and that should also then be, let's say, introduced into in Gaia-X as the standard, because otherwise if you change something significant 2 weeks before the summit because you have some new functionality that is maybe nice to showcase, but please don't do it in the operational environment. So I think that message has came already across, and I think there are changes has been made, but it happened in the past, and of course as long as we talk about R&D, so those things work. If we talk about operations in industry, that is a no-go.
This is, totally agree, and I think we solved this. We have now an up and running clearinghouse out there in a version 1, and this will stay as it is until at least for a year. Then a new release comes, and everybody knows we have the N-1 release strategy, so that means 2 releases that are out there will be up and running and stable and Gaia-X compliant. So that's answering your question here. You are now at least safe for 2 years. Sébastien, we had a lot of talks in the last couple of weeks, and I know that also from a marketing perspective, sometimes the lighthouses have some wishes when we talk rainbow. Is there something that you want to share with us that we can support projects in a better way.
To conclude quickly, I mean, my major wish is to have a network of operational and industrial clearing houses with new functionality in order to secure data exchange, data transaction on the technical and economic and business point of view, so that lots of platforms and data spaces could be interconnected together, so that at the end we will have the free circulation of data within Europe in order to develop added value for all European companies, specifically EU European farmers. This is the wish for this year and next year.
Thank you a lot. Yeah, you see, we have up and running clearing houses. We have lighthouses that are already joining those clearing houses, and we have a lot in the pipeline and a lot of energy and a lot of drive. Yes, there is things that we receive as a wish list, and we're happy to work on that. And as I already said, if you are interested in becoming a lighthouse, reach out to us. And if you're interested to get to know more about each of those super interesting things, please go, take the chance to visit the booth. And now just join me in thanking for your time, your efforts here, and all your thoughts that you shared with us. And thanks for being one of our lighthouses. So a big hand for all of you.